She stood at the mirror in her crimson dress, finally feeling beautiful. But when her billionaire husband saw her, his face twisted with rage. "Where do you think you're going dressed like that?" he shouted. What happened next would either destroy their marriage or save it forever. Before we dive into this powerful story of love, control, and redemption, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. Trust me, you won't want to miss how this unfolds. Now let's begin. Nicole Adams had everything most people dreamed of. A penthouse overlooking Central Park, designer clothes filling walk-in closets, a black card with no limit, and a husband worth $3 billion. From the outside, her life looked like a fairy tale. But inside those marble walls, Nicole was disappearing. She hadn't noticed it happening at first. It started so subtly, so sweetly. Lawrence Mitchell, the brilliant tech mogul who'd swept her off her feet 4 years ago, had always been particular about things. He liked order, precision, perfection. When they were dating, Nicole found it charming. He'd pick restaurants with the best ambiance, plan weekends down to the last detail, buy her thoughtful gifts. She felt treasured, adored. But somewhere between the engagement and their third wedding anniversary, his preferences became her prison. It began with small suggestions. "Darling, don't you think the beige looks more elegant than that yellow?" he'd say, his hand gentle on her shoulder as she dressed for a dinner party. "You have such natural beauty. You don't need all that bright lipstick." His voice was always calm, always reasonable, always wrapped in compliments that felt like chains. Nicole had been an art curator before their marriage, vibrant and outspoken, known for her bold style and even bolder opinions. She wore colors that made her dark skin glow: burnt orange, deep purple, emerald green. Her natural hair was a crown she wore with pride. She'd debate art theory for hours, her eyes blazing with passion. That woman was gone now. In her place stood someone Nicole barely recognized. Someone who wore beige, ivory, and soft gray. Someone who straightened her hair every week until it lay flat and lifeless. Someone who said, "Yes, dear," and "whatever you think is best," to a man who'd convinced her that his way was the right way. 3 years into their marriage, Nicole's days blurred together in a routine of perfection. Morning yoga with a private instructor, lunch with other wealthy wives who talked about charity galas and vacation homes, afternoon calls with party planners and interior designers, evening dinners where she smiled at Lawrence's business associates and said very little. She was the perfect accessory to his perfect life. But late at night, when Lawrence was asleep and the city lights flickered through their windows, Nicole would lie awake and wonder where she'd gone. Sometimes she'd sneak into her closet and pull out a box hidden on the highest shelf. Inside were photos from her old life, her and her best friend Angela at art shows, dancing at festivals, laughing with abandon. The woman in those photos wore red lipstick and had fire in her eyes. Nicole would stare at that stranger and feel tears slip down her cheeks. Everything changed on a Tuesday afternoon. Nicole was sorting through mail when she found a cream-colored envelope addressed to her in familiar handwriting. Inside was an invitation to an art gallery opening. Her old college roommate, Teresa, was finally showcasing her work in Manhattan. The opening was Friday night. Nicole's heart jumped. She hadn't been to a gallery in 3 years. Lawrence always had some excuse: business dinners, important events. His preference for more refined entertainment, like the opera or symphony. But this time, Lawrence was supposed to be in Tokyo for a business meeting. He'd be gone all weekend. She called Angela immediately. Her best friend picked up on the first ring. "Nicole? Oh my God, I was just thinking about you." "Angela, Teresa's having a show Friday night. Will you come with me?" There was a pause, then Angela's voice, careful and gentle. "Of course I will. Is Lawrence okay with this?" "He'll be out of town," Nicole said, and even she could hear the way her voice dropped, guilty and small. "Nicole," Angela's voice was firm now, "you don't need permission to live your life." That evening, Nicole did something she hadn't done in years. She went shopping alone. Lawrence usually accompanied her, or she used a personal shopper who knew his preferences. But today, Nicole walked into a boutique she'd passed 100 times but never entered. The windows always displayed dresses in colors she no longer wore. A young sales assistant greeted her with a warm smile. "Welcome. Are you looking for anything special? I, I have a gallery opening on Friday, Nicole said, her voice uncertain. I need something to wear. The assistant's eyes lit up. I have just the thing. She returned with a dress that made Nicole's breath catch. It was red, not burgundy or wine, red, bold, unapologetic, stunning red. The kind of red that demanded to be seen. The fabric was elegant, but the cut was daring, with a neckline that suggested confidence and a fit that celebrated curves. I couldn't, Nicole whispered, even as her fingers reached for the fabric. Try it on, the assistant encouraged. Just try it. In the dressing room, Nicole slipped the dress over her head. The zipper glided up. She turned to the mirror and gasped. The woman staring back at her looked like someone she used to know. Someone she'd buried under years of beige and silence. The red made her skin glow. It made her look powerful, alive. Nicole bought the dress. She also bought red lipstick and gold hoop earrings. Walking out of that boutique, her heart pounded like she'd committed a crime. Friday evening arrived. Lawrence's flight to Tokyo was supposed to leave at noon. Nicole waited until 3 o'clock to start getting ready, just to be safe. She drew a bath, took her time, played music she loved, jazz that Lawrence thought was too chaotic. She moisturized her skin until it gleamed. She put on the red dress and stood before her bedroom mirror. Her hands shook as she applied the lipstick. Ruby red, bold against her dark skin. She put on the gold earrings. They caught the light, dancing. For the first time in 3 years, Nicole looked at herself and smiled. Really smiled. There I am, she whispered to her reflection, and tears filled her eyes. There you are. She was reaching for her purse when she heard it, the sound that made her blood run cold. The elevator that opened directly into their penthouse. The familiar footfall. Lawrence's voice calling out, Nicole, darling, I'm home. Her heart stopped. The Tokyo meeting. It must have been canceled. He was supposed to be on a plane. He was supposed to be gone. Nicole stood frozen in their bedroom as Lawrence's footsteps approached. She thought about running to the closet, changing, hiding the dress. But something stopped her. Maybe it was the woman in the mirror. Maybe it was 3 years of silence. Maybe it was just exhaustion from pretending. She stayed exactly where she was. Lawrence appeared in the doorway, loosening his tie. The meeting got moved to next week, so I thought I'd surprise you and we could... His voice died. His eyes widened. His face went through a transformation Nicole had never seen. Surprise melting into confusion. Confusion hardening into something that looked like rage. What are you wearing? 3 words, but the way he said them made Nicole feel like she'd done something unforgivable. It's a dress, she said quietly. I'm going to Teresa's gallery opening. In that? Lawrence's voice rose. He stepped closer, his eyes scanning her from head to toe, and Nicole saw disgust in his expression. Actual disgust. Where do you think you're going dressed like that? I told you, Teresa's... You look ridiculous. The words came out sharp, cutting. That dress is completely inappropriate. You look like you're desperate for attention. Like some... He didn't finish, but Nicole knew what he was thinking. She could see it in his eyes. Something inside her cracked. 3 years of cracks, really, finally splitting wide open. I look beautiful, she said, and her voice was shaking but steady. You look like you're trying too hard. This isn't you, Nicole. You're elegant, refined. This... He gestured at her dress with disgust. This is beneath you. Beneath us. What would people think? I don't care what people think. Lawrence's jaw tightened. Well, I do. I have a reputation. We have a reputation. You're my wife. You represent me, and I won't have you walking around looking like... Like what? Nicole's voice was louder now. Like a woman who isn't afraid of color? Like someone with her own style? Like myself? Go change, Lawrence said, and his voice went cold. That executive voice he used with employees he was about to fire. Right now, put on something appropriate. Nicole looked at him, really looked at him, at the man she'd loved, the man she'd reshaped herself for, and she saw what he'd become, what she'd let him become, a man who loved control more than he loved her. No, she whispered. What did you say? I said no. Louder now. Stronger. I'm wearing this dress. I'm going to support my friend. Lawrence's face went red. If you walk out that door dressed like that, if you embarrass me and disrespect me like this, don't bother coming back. Do you understand me? Don't come back. The ultimatum hung in the air between them. Nicole felt tears burning her eyes, but she didn't let them fall. Her hands trembled as she picked up her purse. Her legs felt weak as she walked toward the door. But she walked. Nicole! Lawrence's voice was sharp behind her. Nicole, I mean it! She didn't turn around. She stepped into the elevator and pressed the button for the lobby. As the doors closed, she saw Lawrence standing in their penthouse, his face a mixture of shock and rage. He clearly hadn't expected her to actually leave. Neither had she. The elevator descended, and Nicole's entire body shook. What had she just done? She just walked away from her husband, her home, her entire life. Over a dress. Was she crazy? Lawrence was right. He had a reputation to protect. She was being selfish, childish, ridiculous. But then the elevator doors opened to the lobby, and Nicole caught her reflection in the polished marble walls. That woman in red, standing tall despite her fear. And she knew she wasn't crazy. She was finally sane. Meanwhile, 40 floors above, Lawrence stood alone in their penthouse. His anger was still hot in his chest, but it was fading, replaced by something else. Confusion. Hurt. And underneath it all, a creeping sense of dread. Nicole had never said no to him before. Never walked away. Never defied him. The shock of it left him breathless. He paced their living room, his mind racing. She'd come back. Of course she would. Where would she go? This was her home. He was her husband. She'd realized she was being dramatic, and she'd come back, apologize, and things would go back to normal. But as the minutes ticked by and the apartment stayed silent, doubt crept in. Lawrence found himself wandering into their bedroom. The closet door was open, and he could see row after row of clothes in neutral tones. Beige, cream, soft gray, dove white. When had Nicole stopped wearing colors? He tried to remember and couldn't. On the dresser was their wedding photo, Nicole in white, radiant and glowing. But even then, even on their wedding day, she'd been different from the woman he'd met. Quieter, more contained. He'd thought she was maturing, becoming more sophisticated. Now seeing that photo, he wondered if she'd already been disappearing. Lawrence pulled out his phone, and before he could second-guess himself, called his mother. She answered on the third ring. Lawrence, it's late, dear. Is everything all right? Mom, His voice cracked. Nicole left. The whole story came pouring out. The dress, the argument, the ultimatum. When he finished, there was a long silence on the other end. Son, his mother said finally, her voice gentle but firm, let me ask you something. Do you love her, or do you love controlling her? The question hit him like a physical blow. What? Mom, I love my wife. I just want what's best for her. What's best for her, or what's best for your image? Lawrence opened his mouth to argue, but the words died. His mother wasn't finished. You sound just like your father, she said quietly. Lawrence felt ice in his stomach. His father had been a domineering man who'd controlled every aspect of his mother's life. Lawrence had watched his mother shrink year by year, watched the light go out of her eyes. He'd sworn he'd never be like that. I'm not, he started, but his mother cut him off. Your father always said he knew best too. Always had opinions about what I wore, who I saw, what I said. He loved me, in his way, but he loved his control more. Is that who you want to be? After they hung up, Lawrence sat in the dark for a long time. Memories flickered through his mind. Nicole's laugh, bright and full, when they first met. The way she'd gesture wildly when talking about art, her whole body animated with passion. Her closet in her old apartment, a rainbow of colors. Her natural hair, wild and beautiful. When had he last heard her really laugh? When had he last seen that passion in her eyes? When had he last asked what she wanted, instead of telling her what he thought was best? The apartment felt enormous and empty. Lawrence had built an empire. He had billions in the bank. He had power and influence and respect. But sitting alone in the dark, he realized he'd been about to lose the only thing that actually mattered. At the gallery, Nicole stood in front of Teresa's paintings, barely seeing them through her tears. Angela had her arm around her shoulders, saying nothing, just being there. Other guests milled around, champagne glasses in hand, but Nicole felt like she was underwater, everything muffled and distant. Her phone buzzed. Lawrence calling. She didn't answer. It buzzed again and again. 12 missed calls by the time the gallery closed. "Come stay with me tonight," Angela said. "You don't have to decide anything. Just breathe." Nicole nodded. She couldn't go back to that penthouse. Not yet. Maybe not ever. But as Angela drove through the Manhattan streets, Nicole felt something unexpected. Underneath the fear and grief and confusion, there was something else. Something that felt almost like relief. Like she'd been holding her breath for 3 years and finally let it out. She'd worn the red dress. She'd said no. She'd walked away. And the world hadn't ended. She was still here, still breathing, still herself. Maybe more herself than she'd been in years. It was past midnight when Lawrence finally admitted to himself that Nicole wasn't coming home. Not tonight, maybe not tomorrow, maybe not ever, if he didn't change something fundamental about himself. He made a decision, not because he wanted to manipulate her into returning, not because he wanted to win an argument, but because, sitting alone in that empty penthouse, Lawrence finally understood what he'd been doing, and it horrified him. The next morning, he called a therapist. The weeks that followed were the hardest of Lawrence's life. In therapy, he confronted truths about himself that made him sick. His need for control wasn't about love. It was about fear. Fear that Nicole would see the real him and leave. Fear that he wasn't enough. Fear that came from watching his father control his mother and learning that love looked like ownership. He wrote Nicole letters, not demands, not ultimatums, just honest words about what he was learning, what he was working on. He didn't ask her to come back. He didn't make promises he wasn't sure he could keep. He just tried to be honest for the first time in their relationship. Nicole read the letters but didn't respond. She was doing her own work, staying with Angela, going to therapy, rediscovering who she'd been before Lawrence. She took a part-time position at a small gallery. She wore colors again, oranges and greens and purples, and yes, that red dress. She let her hair return to its natural texture, big and beautiful and unapologetically hers. Some days she missed Lawrence so much it physically hurt. Other days she felt angry at what she'd allowed him to do to her. Most days she felt both, and 1,000 other things besides. But slowly, carefully, she was finding herself again. After 6 weeks, Lawrence sent a different kind of text. "Can we talk? Just coffee. No expectations. Please." Nicole stared at the message for an hour before responding. Saturday, 10 a.m., the cafe on 79th. When Saturday came, Nicole arrived first. She wore a bright yellow blouse and her natural hair in all its glory. When Lawrence walked in, she watched his face carefully for any sign of judgment, criticism, control. Instead, she saw his eyes light up, not with possessiveness, with genuine joy. "You look happy," he said simply, sitting across from her. "I'm getting there," Nicole replied honestly. They talked for 2 hours. Lawrence didn't make excuses. He didn't minimize what he'd done. He explained what he was learning in therapy, how his father's behavior had warped his understanding of love, how his own insecurities had manifested as control, how he'd been so afraid of losing her that he'd nearly destroyed her. "I don't know if you can ever forgive me," he said, his voice breaking. "I don't know if I deserve forgiveness. But I want you to know that I'm working on myself. Not to win you back, but because I need to be better. I need to be someone worthy of love. Real love. Not the toxic thing I was offering you." Nicole listened. She saw the dark circles under his eyes, the weight he'd lost, the genuine anguish in his expression. But she'd also learned something in these weeks apart. His pain didn't mean she owed him anything. His growth was good, but it was his responsibility, not hers. "I need more time," she said, "and I need to know that if we try again, things would be completely different. I won't go back to who I was. I can't. I don't want you to, Lawrence said urgently. Nicole, the woman I met 4 years ago, vibrant and passionate and bold. That's who I fell in love with. I'm the one who tried to change you. I'm the one who was wrong. I want to know the real you, all of you, not some version I tried to create. They met again the next week, and the week after that. Slowly, carefully, they began to rebuild something. Not the marriage they'd had, but something new, something healthier. It wasn't easy. There were setbacks, arguments, tears. Lawrence slipped into old patterns sometimes, and Nicole had to remind him and herself that she had a voice and the right to use it. 3 months after that night in the red dress, Lawrence invited Nicole to a charity gala. His company was hosting it, and he needed to attend. "Would you come with me?" he asked. "And Nicole, wear whatever makes you feel beautiful. Not what you think I want to see, not what you think is appropriate, whatever makes you feel like yourself." Nicole thought about it for a long time. Then she went to her closet at Angela's apartment and pulled out the red dress. The one that had started everything. The one that had saved her. When Lawrence picked her up that evening and saw her in that dress, his eyes filled with tears. "You're breathtaking," he whispered. "I know," Nicole said, and she smiled. Not a polite smile, not a careful smile, a real smile, full of the confidence and fire that he'd tried to extinguish. At the gala, Lawrence never left her side, but not because he was controlling her, because he wanted to be near her. When other guests asked Nicole questions, he stepped back and let her speak. When she talked about art with passion and fire, he listened with pride. When she laughed, loud and unrestrained, he didn't shush her. He laughed too. On the drive home, Nicole took his hand. "Thank you," she said quietly. "For what?" "For learning, for changing, for letting me be me." Lawrence brought her hand to his lips. "Thank you for giving me another chance, for teaching me what love really means. I know I don't deserve it. I know I have years of earning your trust back. But Nicole, I promise you, I will spend the rest of my life celebrating who you are, not trying to change you." They still had a long road ahead. Trust once broken takes time to rebuild. Nicole moved back into the penthouse eventually, but on her terms. She kept her job at the gallery. She kept her voice. She kept her colors. And Lawrence kept his promise. Day by day, choice by choice, he proved that people can change, that love doesn't have to be controlling, that the best thing you can do for someone is let them be fully, completely themselves. The red dress still hangs in Nicole's closet. She wears it sometimes, but not as often as you'd think, because she doesn't need it anymore. She doesn't need a red dress to be brave or visible or herself. She'd found those things inside herself. The dress was just the beginning, but on their anniversary each year, Nicole puts on that red dress, and Lawrence looks at her with love, real love, the kind that celebrates rather than controls, and they both remember the night that almost destroyed them and ended up saving them instead. Nicole and Lawrence's story reminds us that real love isn't about molding someone into your idea of perfection. It's about seeing someone fully, in all their messy, colorful, authentic glory, and loving them for exactly who they are. Lawrence had to lose Nicole to finally see her, and Nicole had to risk everything to find herself. Their journey wasn't a fairy tale. It was hard work, painful honesty, and daily choices to do better. But it was real, and that made it beautiful. If this story touched your heart, please hit that like button and share this video with someone who needs to hear this message. Maybe someone who's lost themselves in a relationship. Maybe someone who's been controlling without realizing it. We all need reminders that love should make us more, never less. Subscribe for more powerful stories about love, growth, and second chances. And drop a comment below. Have you ever felt like you were losing yourself for someone else? Or maybe you learned to love someone better? Let's talk about it. Your story matters, and this community is here to listen. The red dress wasn't magic, but sometimes it takes something small to help us remember something big, who we really are and who we deserve to become. See you in the next story.